This evening, our topic is natural morality and sexual behavior. And without a further introduction, I would like to present to you Dr. Jérôme Lejeune.
As I tried to say previously, there is a confession that every scientist should make at the beginning of a talk about human genetics. That is, living matter does not exist. There is nothing like living matter. Matter cannot live at all. Matter cannot reproduce itself, and matter can even not be reproduced. And to make that clear, let's look at a statue. A statue can be reproduced, and between the original and the mold, and then between the mold and the replica, there would be a contiguity of matter, atom to atom. But what will be reproduced is not the matter of the original, because it can be reproduced in plaster, in plastic, in bronze, in anything. Then what will be reproduced is not the matter, but it is a form which was imprinted by the sculptor. And it's exactly similar in biology. What is transmitted from generation to generation is not the matter, because the size of the first body would have been enormous, so that a million billions of bodies could be taken out of it. But nevertheless, the reproduction of a living system is much more complicated than duplicating an inanimate effigy. And reproduction in life is more similar to what is done now with a television camera, in which a tape is modified by a minute change of aimantation of the band according to signals which have been transduced from the picture to a special system, so that the band will now contain coded information that nobody can see. But that a special machine could transfer again and transform in your screen on television as another picture. It's roughly that way that the living systems are transmitting their message from one generation to the next generation. Now, it's exactly the same with life. Life is encoded in a very complex matter and manner that we have not to describe point by point, but on a very long ribbon that we call the DNA, which is very similar to the tape band we have in a tape recorder. But information is written there according a code, so that you don't see. You can read it, but it has to be transferred by a special system, a kind of head of lecture, just like in a magnetoscope, so that now it's transferred not any longer in DNA, but it's transferred to RNA. RNA, it's a kind of negative copy. And RNA is now transferred by another system into a protein, which is the machine tool that the cell is using to manifest life. Now, when we see that, we realize progressively that really life is a kind of symphony. The symphony is written on a ribbon, but you have to have a special magnetophone, tape recorder, so that this can be decoded and you get the music out of the code of the DNA. And the music is life itself. Then, when we speak about living matter, we just make a mistake. Matter is not alive, but matter can be animated, and what animates matter, it's exactly the information which is written inside the DNA and the enormous amount of information which is inside the tape recorder. Because if there are no tape recorder, the DNA means nothing. It has to be read. So that the letter does not give life. Spirit does. What I would like to try to discuss with you is whether there is human nature being given by the information included in the DNA and in the cell, whether there is some, how do you call it, a user's manual, and whether there is also instructions for maintenance. You know, the user's manual is the Decalogue, and the instruction for maintenance are just the commandments of the church. Are they written really in the life? At least can we find a connection between those instructions and the life? Well, the first we can find is that there is a curious philosophical fact that essence precedes existence. That's totally demonstrable in genetics, because if you remember what I said at the beginning, that the information is in the DNA and must be translated inside the nucleus in RNA, which should be translated now, translated in protein, then at the beginning, before the translation has occurred, if you were wise enough to read what is written on the whole DNA of this very peculiar egg, which 9 months later we will call Peter of Margaret, for example, which is already Peter and already Margaret by its information, if we could read, we would see its essence written in plain letter, but not yet expressed. And during the few divisions, he progressively would express this information so that existence will now follow from the essence. And no matter you twist the words, you will find that the definition of life is just as simple as that. Essence precedes existence. I don't know if it is philosophy, because geneticists are not embarrassed by philosophy because they don't know it. Maybe if they knew, they would have some reluctance to say those blunt statements as I do. Never mind. The things are like that. Then, to summarize, the best epitome of life would be just to read the beginning of the Gospel according to St. John. In the beginning, there is a message. This message is in the life, and this message is life. And if this message is a human message, this life is a human life. That's the most experimental consequence of molecular biology of today. And it's very comforting for the science of today that it took us only nearly 2,000 years just to find that at the beginning there was the Logos. It happens that I travel a lot, too much, to be honest. But as far as I can, in many countries, I try to visit two very important places. One is a university or the hospital, and the other is a zoological garden. Both places are very instructive. In universities, I always meet very learned people asking themselves very gravely whether their children, when they are very young, are not some kind of animals. But in the zoo, I have never seen a congress of chimpanzees asking themselves whether their children, when they will be grown up, will not become university professors. That seems to be a very little observation, but it means that something must be written which is different in the two nature, the one of the chimp and the one of the man. And the very learned colleagues who do not see that are, with due respect to their knowledge, thinking like chimpanzees. Now, how could we convince them that the tiny thing, 1 millimeter and a half, which contains the whole human nature, is really a member of our kin? To do that, we have to use all the resources of genetics and embryology. I will discuss that tomorrow.